bit right there. On the underspin. There's a lot of birds out here, these grebes, and they feed on shad and silver sides and all those little bait fish, so they're a good sign of life, activity. So usually if you find the birds, you can find some bait, and usually the bass won't be too far behind. So I'm kind of using them as an indicator of where I should be fishing for now. I'm also using my side scan to just graph around and see if I see any marks. Exactly why you come to Clear Lake. Jeez, I didn't even see a fish close to this size that whole last trip. First fish of the day. Nice chunky one. Oh my god, the fish here are just so freaking healthy. Keitech 3.8. Yep. Oh yeah. 3.5. Pull the scale out, check them out. Hey, what's up y'all? Bass Addicts back in the garage for part 3 of my top 5 baits for the fall season series. The last couple videos we talked about jerk baits, shallow running crankbaits, and so today we're gonna get kind of off the hard bait train and get a little bit into the soft baits, but sticking with that bait fish trend. So this time of year, as I talked about in other videos, pretty much most of the time I'm imitating some sort of shad, silver side, or some other type of bait fish, because that's what the bass are keying on in most of my fisheries. Those balls of shad are starting to get more condensed. Those bass are starting to kind of corral them in the shallows, and they're feeding up for the winter time. So a lot of my presentations are kind of going to be focused towards that, but definitely tailor your baits to the forage that you have in your lakes. So if you don't have shad or some other type of small bait fish, definitely adjust your presentations, but these baits will still definitely work. So today we're going to talk about underspins. Underspins, hence the name, is some type of jig head or weedless hook with a blade attached underneath that provides some extra flash, some extra vibration, and it can be the ticket to helping your bait stand out. When there's a bunch of bait in the area, say you pull up into a pocket and the bass are corralling bait and they're feeding up actively, if you just cast a bare swim bait in there, you got no extra flash, you got no extra vibration, the likeliness of a bass choosing that bait as opposed to the real thing is very slim. And so having that extra flash, that extra vibration, giving the fish something extra to key in on can be a huge factor in getting those bites. And sometimes even like having that blade, you'll swim your bait through a school of shad and they'll kind of scatter out, they'll get a little spooked, and then you'll see the bass come up and just smoke your bait. So just having that extra something to get the bass's attention is really important. And so that's why I tend to lean towards the underspin as opposed to just a standard swim bait, no blade. Some of the areas that I like to target when I'm throwing an underspin, yeah, like I was talking about, pockets where there's bait fish that you can see, bass corralling bait fish, blowing up on bait fish in shallow water. Those are great areas. Weed lines, if you've still got healthy grass, those can be great areas to throw an underspin. Rock piles, if even on a cold day you can slow down and throw an underspin and kind of bounce it on the bottom a little slower, and get some of those big fish that like to pick off those injured bait fish. What's another good spot? You can throw them around docks, you can throw them on ledges. The good thing about underspins is they vary in weight. You can get weedless versions, you can get open hook versions, and so you can really tailor your presentation to the cover that you're fishing, the structure that you're fishing. And there's so many different kinds of underspins. So this is really a broad technique. I'm just gonna get into a few of the approaches that I like to use, but yeah, like I said, it's pretty broad. The range of bait size that you can use is super big, and the amount of different head styles is also just a big category. So hop on Tackle Warehouse and just search up underspins, and you can just look through and see what catches your eye. Let me see, I got a list of just things, make sure I cover everything I want to talk about. Yeah, so I talked about the areas that I like to throw these in. We'll talk about just some of the specific underspins that I like. First, we'll go with the open hook underspins. The clip that I show in the beginning of the video, I was throwing this Cool Baits underspin. It's kind of a finesse underspin. It's got a light wire hook and a little small willow leaf blade. So it's not a ton of vibration, but it definitely gives off a little bit, and then you get that flash. And if you're reeling it on bottom, you'll even get a little bit of sound from that blade hitting rocks and stuff. So that one's a great option. That pairs well with like your smaller 3-inch, 3.5-inch swim baits. This is a 3.8 Keitech. You could even go down to like a 2.8, would probably fit just fine on that head. And I like anywhere from like an 1/8 ounce. If you're going really shallow or you want to slow that retrieve down, you can go throw an 1/8 ounce, or if you want to target deeper water, you can even go up to like a 1/2 ounce. So your weight range really just depends on the depth of water you're fishing and how fast you want to reel it. Another good open hooked underspin is this Picasso. This one, the blade hangs down a little lower, so it's good for some of those fatter bodied swim baits. It still allows that blade to spin freely and not get tangled up in your swim bait. And I'll link all this stuff in the description as always, so y'all can just hop on, click, and yeah, purchase those baits right away. This one's a little bigger, heavier underspin. So yeah, if I was gonna throw it on a deeper ledge, maybe those fish are holding in like 10 to 15, could throw this. This is, yeah, the Blade Runner fish head spin. It's, once again, got a small hook, but it's got a lot bigger hook. Small blade, bigger hook, and then a screw lock to lock in your swim baits. And then this one's unique. It's not really an underspin, but it's got that flash and it gives a little bit of vibration also. Oh, threw it over. But this is the Megabass Okashira head. And so it's, yeah, it's kind of got this little propeller system, and that sits in front of your swim bait, and that can give a little bit of extra flash, a little bit of extra vibration, and it also kind of makes your bait wobble a little bit just because of the water displacement. And those are all good heads that I've caught fish on. You can just experiment, see what you like. Some are thicker gauged hooks, so if you're around bigger fish, if you're targeting stripers or big largemouth, you can go with some of those thicker hooks. And then if you're targeting spotted bass or smallmouth, or you just don't have super large fish in your fishery, you can go down with like the cool baits or the Megabass, the Okashira head. Those are lighter wire hooks. You can throw smaller swim baits on those and not have to worry about bending out your gear on big fish. And then to get into some of the weedless stuff, this is pretty much what I throw, the Owner Flashy Swimmer. It's a weedless swim bait hook with a screw lock on there, and then you've got your blade hanging down below. I'll show y'all how to rig that. If you've never thrown a screw lock swim bait hook, it's got this little centering pin screw that's attached to the eye of the hook. Take your swim bait, make sure you want to go straight into the center of the head of the bait. Screw that on there. And then you want to kind of line up where that hook's going to pop out. This is I think this is a 4/0, and so it fits pretty good on this 4.8 Keitech, almost to the end of the hook slot. Let it go in, and then pop that hook out, and it sits right in that little hook slot. And yeah, you're weedless. And you can even Texpose it and just tuck the hook point into the skin of the swim bait if you want to, just for to make it extra weedless. But even if you're around some grass, you can just let that hook sit right there and you'll have great hookups. So that one is money. And then they make that in all sorts of sizes. This is a 1/0, so if you want to throw those smaller 3-inch swim baits, you can throw the smaller hook, and they come with different color blades. You can get the gold or the silver, and then you can get the Colorado blade or the willow leaf blade, depending on the willow leaf is a little less vibration, and then the Colorado is a little bit more of a thump. So if you want to reel your bait slower, maybe your water is a little more stained, you can go with that Colorado blade, and you'll get a little more vibration to help those fish find it. But if you're in some cleaner water, you don't need as much vibration. You kind of want it more for the flash. That willow is a great option. And then yeah, you can even go up. This is that same hook, but this is the 6/0, and I've got that on a Working Class 0 Citizen 6. So if you're one of those anglers that likes to throw bigger baits, you can experiment and still have that underspin presentation, but on some bigger baits. So those are a bunch of great options. Some of the swim baits that I like to throw, pretty much all Keitechs. The Swing Impact Fat is pretty much the standard in terms of bass fishing. So many people throw it, which can be a pro and a con. It definitely catches fish, but a lot of people throw it. Sometimes it's good to switch it up and throw a different swim bait. So I'll link some other stuff in the description. The Jackal makes a good one. Netbait makes a good little swim bait. There's the, what's this other one? The Storm Largo Shad is a good one. But I usually stick with the Swing Impact, the Keitech, just because it comes in so many different sizes. You've got the 3.3 for those smaller finesse heads, And then you got all the way up to the 4.8, 5.8, even 6.8 for those bigger presentations. And then if you want to be super finessey, you can mess around. Keitech makes this other swim bait called the Easy Shiner, and it's a lot thinner body, doesn't have any ribs on it, and it's got a tiny little tail. And so that thing, you can reel it really slow, and that tail will just be back there kicking. You don't get a bunch of body roll like the Swing Impact Fat. It's got a big tail kick, and it gets the head of the underspin wobbling. And so it's real aggressive. If those fish are active, that's a great option. But if those fish seem like they're not super active, maybe the water's a little colder in your lake, the Easy Shiner is a great option for those more finicky fish. And that comes in a 3.5 inch and a 4 inch. I think they might even have a 3 inch. So the super tiny guy. But those are some great options. And then in terms of gear, my cat keeps jumping in the video. Get out of here, boy. In terms of gear, it really varies depending on the underspin you're throwing. Sometimes I'm throwing it on a spinning rod. So for those smaller underspins like the Megabass Okashira, I'll throw it on a spinning rod. My Dobyns, my Kaden, I'll link that in the description. And then if I'm throwing some of those heavier open hooks, swim baits, underspins, or some of those weedless 3 to 4 inch or 3 to 5 inch underspins. This rod I got this year. It's the Shimano Expride. I feel like I'm a broken record. I keep talking about Exprides, but it's really one of my favorite rod lines. It's just for the price. It's not a cheap rod. It's over 200 bucks, but for the price, it's like it fishes like some of those super high-end $300, $400 rods. It's just really consistent, really light. It looks thick. It's like all black with the cork handle. But I love that. And this one is the 7.2 medium heavy, so it's light enough to throw some of those like 1/4, 3/8 ounce heads, but it's heavy enough that you can set the hook on some of those bigger underspins. But yeah, if I'm throwing something like this, the bigger 6/0 underspins, the weedless with a big swim bait, I might go up to like a 7.6 heavy or something like that. So it really just depends on the head you're fishing, the bait you're fishing. You want to adjust based on that. And then the reel that I like on that Expride, I've got Shimano Curado. This is the 151 MGL, and this is a 7-to-1 gear ratio. So a little on the faster side. Definitely could go down to like a 6-to-1, just because having that steady, slow, steady retrieve. Not moving it too fast, but not too slow. But 7-to-1 is good too, because you have the option to speed it up. So yeah, you can kind of switch it up. I don't think for this presentation the gear ratio isn't the most important thing. I wouldn't go with like something super high like an 8-to-1, and I wouldn't go super slow like a 5-to-1, but anywhere from like a 6.2-to-1 or a 7.1-to-1 is good, anywhere in that range. And just a good steady retrieve, and every couple reel turns just give it like a speed up and pop your bait a little bit, give it some action, get that blade to kick and flash. That can be a good trigger. And then in terms of line, once again, a lot of variation depending on the underspin you're throwing, the setup you're throwing. On the spinning rod with the smaller underspins, I like to throw 8-pound Sunline FC Sniper fluorocarbon. And then On the Weedless, the bigger Weedless Underspins, I'll probably throw anywhere from like 16 to 20 pound fluorocarbon, that same Sunline FC Sniper. Just depending on, yeah, the size of your bait, the size of your hook, and the weight of your rod, or the power of your rod, excuse me. Yeah, because if you have a heavy hook and a big bait and you're throwing light line, it's just a recipe for disaster. But also if you've got too big of a rod and too heavy a line and you're throwing one of these tiny underspins, your bait's not going to have as much action as it should. And so you want to just adjust accordingly based on whatever swim bait and whatever underspin you're throwing. And I'll detail all that stuff in the description as always, kind of what setup I want to pair with what underspins. But yeah, that's kind of the rundown. That's how I like to fish those are some of the underspins that I like to throw, and some of the areas that I like to target. Kind of wasn't too specific on my setups, so apologies for that, but it really just depends on what the baits you're throwing. So yeah, go online, check out different underspins, see what looks appropriate for your style of fishing. Some of those smaller underspins, if you've got smaller fish or spotted bass, smallmouth, and then you can definitely go bigger and target some of those giants. So hopefully that helps. This technique has definitely caught me some good fish over the years. It's something I picked up pretty early on. I was throwing it in like golf course ponds and stuff and catching nice fish on Keitechs way back in high school. So it's carried me all the way to now, still catching fish. Yeah, I don't think they'll ever stop smoking that thing. So if you haven't thrown an underspin, definitely look to add it to your arsenal. It's a great bait to throw this time of year, just like I was talking about, having that extra something to appeal to those fish when you're throwing around just schools of hundreds, thousands of bait fish and looking to stand out to get a bite. So appreciate y'all watching. That's bait number 3 for the top 5. Just got 2 more to go. Definitely going to talk about A-rigs, and then the 5th bait is kind of up in the air. I've been going back and forth, so y'all will just have to tune in to see what number 5 is. But yeah, next is Alabama rigs. So I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.